Guys. All right.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Matthew. We're team two, and we went to the Westin Tempe in downtown Tempe on Mill Avenue. We went to the Tierra Tempe kitchen and lobby, and I'll let everybody else introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I was in charge of taking the pictures of the lobby.
My name is Logan. I was in charge of taking photos of the restaurant.
Actually, I was in charge of taking pictures of the men's restroom.
My name's Abby, and Phoebe and I worked with the lobby and the women's restroom.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, my name is Matthew. I was in charge of doing all the exterior photos and rating that, as well as taking some photos of the food and experience and the menus we had as well at the restaurant. And does anybody want to just kick it off and say, big strength and weaknesses that we thought of the hotel?
Yeah, one of the strengths that I thought was really good is when we originally arrived, they said that the restaurant part was actually closed. On the website, it said it was open. The bar was open, but they said the restaurant was closed. But the bartender did accommodate us, and they sat us a five top at like 3:30 in the middle of the day, which was very nice, I thought. So I think that's a big plus for them just coming out the gate. Um, the dining area was very, very nice. The high ceilings. One thing was a little odd. They had just one TV right in the middle of the bar, which we all kind of thought was a bit strange. But other than that, the food and beverage place was great. Dining area was very, very good ambiance. Music was also great. Not too loud, so you could hear your conversation that you were having with people, which is always nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I think the fact that we were, they weren't really serving tables at the time. They go, they kind of went against their own rules to serve us and accommodate us, which is exactly what a restaurant hospitality industry and person in the business should do.
yeah, I definitely think that they showed really good hospitality with that. I will say one of their weaknesses while we were having our meal, my menu had a lot of sticky stuff on it, and there was like a hair tie on the floor and some other stuff. But besides those two things, I think it was very well kept and it had a very nice aesthetic to it.
Yeah, there were definitely some highs and some lows. Kind of going back to what Logan said about like the accommodation factor. I think even with like outside of the restaurant with the restroom, I went up to the front desk and there was somebody there, she greeted me like immediately. There was no break period. And I just asked her, like, hey, do you guys have a restroom? And they were just like, oh, yeah, it's just right around there. And she pointed me to it. Whereas, like, some hotels, I feel like if you go in and you ask to use something like the restroom, they'll say, well, are you a guest here? But, like, no, they didn't ask any questions. They just provided that hospitality anyway, even though I wasn't like staying the night. So the front desk was really attentive, really polite.
I think also something that was interesting was it was relatively quiet. And I know that the restaurant wasn't open, but I'm curious to know if they get a lot of traction because the hotel is very nice and I would want to see what the bar and restaurant area would look like if it were fully busy, I think. Also, when we look at the lobby, the layout was kind of interesting. There's a lot of almost dead space, but every corner had like its own thing. Like there were tables and chairs for people to sit. There was almost like an office looking like bar top area, which I don't really know what that was for, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, another thing I thought was super interesting about the check-in space for the hotel, it was a very unique design. It almost looked like individual desks, one for each agent, which I did think was a unique design. I think their lobby overall had a lot of unique things to it. Like the light fixtures were also not something you see every day, which I thought was interesting.
Can I add on to that point? Um, so there's this one photo we took where you kind of like you see like the tables and chairs and then like the wall that separates the restaurant and I guess like the check-in, check-out area. And the colors of like the design are kind of off-putting, I think. I think it's close. It almost looks elegant, but it's like a weird like bronze and gold. So they were like really, really close to having it look like this really elegant place. And I think on the website, this hotel looks super elegant, but we did only see like the bottom level. So that's something I noted.
You
Yeah,
know,
I get what you're trying to say. It's going for kind of like that elegant, like ballroom aesthetic, but like there are certain places where it works, certain places that doesn't.
Yeah, and then the back, I don't know if we got a picture of this, and in the back room, there's just a big like grass wall on the side. It's way just tucked in the corner back there. It's just another a weird addition to the ballroom they're trying to go for.
Yeah, I definitely think
Mhm.
even though the restaurant and the lobby were right next to each other, there were completely different aesthetics happening between the two.
yeah, I completely agree. You know, going back to the grass wall, I think it was kind of tucked away back there to kind of have a way for like a private event a little bit. You can have private dining, a little bit more exclusivity, but with the rest of the restaurant, like you said, with the gold and the bronze, and then you look over, there's just a big giant green wall with leaves. So it kind of doesn't fit, but it sort of does. So it's kind of like up to the individual as well. But the layout of the restaurant was really nice. You'd walk up to the host stand, then you had the whole entire restaurant. You can view the bar, and then you can see the kitchen as well. So no, that's a big thing. And at least some other restaurants as well as seeing the kitchen, seeing them actually make your food and talking and whatnot is part of the experience. So something that the Westin did very well.
One thing that I could see being an issue maybe with that bottom floor and maybe with people staying there is like a sound issue. We went when it was relatively quiet, but if we did when it was a crowded, I could see like it being very loud in there. Some of the tables were close together, so I very could easily see it be like too loud in there, just people speaking. I don't know if that might be an issue, but that was an issue for us though.
I will say about the food, I feel like typically when you eat at a hotel, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, the food is very expensive and not that good. But I actually really did enjoy my meal there. I thought it was very, very good, which is not something you always see when you're dining at a hotel.
For out of just to end off the restaurant section, kind of like the lobby restaurant section, let's just all give like our on the fly rating 1 out of 5. Overall, I would say I would give it like a 4. I thought it was pretty good.
I'd give it a 3.5.
I think I would give it a 3.5 as well.
Matthew?
You know, I think I gave it a three or maybe 3.5 for. I mean, it's the one thing that I noticed it didn't have. There wasn't any greeter. There wasn't any like a bell attendant in the lobby. There wasn't somebody welcoming you or opening the door for you, creating that atmosphere like you're walking into an extension of your home. Because the great hotels feel like an extension of your home. Everybody cares about you, and you know, in fact, we just walked right in. And while it was dead, there should be somebody in the lobby there. And if there was somebody, it would have been higher rated. But I think a
Yeah.
3.5.
I also think the cleanliness as well, like the hair tie on the floor, the sticky stuff on the menus, like that already for me just takes a point away, like
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
automatically.
I think that like having a restaurant in the lobby is definitely an interesting choice. I think the restaurant gives like completely different vibes than the lobby as well. Like the lobby had a colder feeling, although they probably weren't going for that. They definitely want it to look elegant. But I think that the restaurant looked more like hippie than elegant. Like it was completely two different vibes. And they had like that divider, but I don't think the divider did it for me.
what would you give as your final rating, Abby?
I would give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's two different things, and the restaurant itself takes up, I would say, most of the lobby floor. So and that's not a problem when you walk in. It's like you're enclosed by a restaurant, and then off the right side is a giant staircase up to their second floor, which I presume, and then tucked behind those staircases are the elevators. So it seems like you're kind of walking in this narrow tunnel rather than just grand open area where there's this friendly atmosphere. But if that's everything with strengths and weaknesses, we can kind of move on to what we think is the best or best practices they can adopt or things they're doing really well that they should keep doing, something that we can ultimately give them to improve the experience people walking in to eat at the restaurant. So anybody want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think something they could do to improve their lobby. Usually when you enter lobby, there's some sort of signage. There was no signage of the Westin, and sometimes that's just hard for guests to, how do I say this? Remember it. And I feel like incorporating a signage would make a better first impression and help guests like reflect on their experience and maybe like, oh yeah, I remember we stayed here. Let's see if there's any hotels in a different area we're going to. But I think it would help guests remember and just leave a better impression.
One thing that I think could be bettered, although it wasn't bad, is implementing some kind of service training. I just remember vividly the first time the bart or the waiter came up to us. She was speaking to us, and then she started walking away, and she was like speaking as well as she was walking away, and we couldn't really hear what she was saying. And I mean, when you're a waiter, you speak clearly to them, and then when you're done talking, then walk away, and then walk away and talk. So maybe some sort of training to just improve that would be my tip.
Justin?
Yeah, probably just a bigger focus on kind of um, like customer experience outside of interaction with the staff and the lobby attendants, like all the things that are outside of that. So that includes like the aesthetic and like we said, like the cleanliness overall. So they're pretty good in terms of like being polite, but they just need to work on the other things, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you. They were very polite when we went up to them, but they really didn't initiate anything when we walked in. It was more about the conversation. They didn't go above and beyond, and they weren't excited to see us, which I know that's the mark of a great hospitality company and a hotel and a restaurant, anything inside the industry, is that you walk in, they're excited to see you, like your long lost friends, or you haven't seen your family in 7 months, and you show up. And I think one aspect of it that can definitely be improved, and I just went, it now just flew out of my head, but um, yeah, squirrel. But one thing they did very, very well, I thought, oh, I remember now, going back. One thing they can definitely improve on is they had a happy hour menu for drinks, but they didn't have anything for food. The only thing we talked about in class is that, dram shop liability and slowing the consumption of alcohol. Have some bites with it. Have some food. That can be additional selling point for them. That can bring in additional revenue, because with restaurants and hotels being low margin businesses, it's very important that if we have assets and stuff in inventory that we can make revenue off of, we need to be utilizing that. Because if you're just sitting there, we're losing out on money. And something that I thought they did very, very well was the menu. The menu was very clear and cut. I thought things were boxed, things were was correctly positioned. Um, and then I did write in my report, I thought they could have moved some things around, but overall, in the menu was had good bones, and it presented a well cohesive, full meal.
I think I would recommend that they get some sort of carpeting situation for their lobby. I think it would feel more like warm than rather like a cold essence. Also, I do wonder because we sort of like did walk in and we were kind of just like roaming for like 2 seconds and taking photos, what their security situation looks like. Especially because it's Tempe and like there's a lot of people out and there's some crazy people. So I'm curious to know how their security system works, if they have a security system. I just think like overall, when you look at this hotel versus the Omni, it's it's hard to compare the two
Yeah.
because Omni was just like the most incredible hotel I've ever seen, honestly. So that's
I
my
work there. No, I was kidding.
I would have to agree with that too. I think the Westin was definitely a step down from the Omni. And while it might be still a good hotel in Tempe, it just wasn't up to those standards.
For sure.
That's something that's important, is because the Westin and the Omni are in the same competitive set in Tempe, right?
Yeah, especially.
So just walking in the atmosphere and the feeling of it, to you, both you, Logan, and Abby, it's that it didn't feel the same. And that goes into what the staff that greets you when they walk in, the atmosphere of what furniture is placed where, the different music and different smells and the fragrances of things that invite you to feel things, invite you to experience things. And so it's really key that you picked up on that, and always something to compare it against with it. And it's like, well, hey, two similar hotels, same comp set. Uh, how do you know how if we're we're talking to Westin, well, how do we get to that same level that we felt with the Omni? And that could be doing, like you said, different furniture that doesn't make you feel like you're an Olympic medalist with gold, silver, and bronze, or different music sounds. It's not so quiet, or people in the lobby greeting. But with that, does anybody else have any recommendations, things they want to add, things that they did really well that they should keep doing?
I think we pretty much covered it. I think we're all kind of on the same page of what they did well and what they should maybe work on. But I think we pretty much covered it. What about you
What's
guys?
our overall rating as a group if we were to rate the hotel?
I think we have all kind of said around a 3.5. I think it's also
Yeah.
hard to gauge when we haven't seen the rooms or
The
the
pool.
other amenities, because obviously we couldn't go do that. But I
Yeah.
would say
I still think I would give it probably like 3.5, like 4, maybe pushing it, maybe 4. I don't know.
I would say we stick with either 3 or 3.5. Like,
Yeah.
We'll go with a 3.7. Did the whole Dave Portnoy
okay,
pizza thing.
okay,
3.7.
yeah.
No.
Well, thank you guys.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Good work, team.
And then you can just end the recording, Justin.
Would be interesting